Hello future officers, welcome to another NewsKase session wherein we try to bring in the most relevant of current news integrated with both prelims as well as static, right? So in today's NewsKase we will discuss about a report which was released recently by WMO, that is World Meteorological Organization, right? And it reads the global climate 2011 to 2020. A decade of accelerating climate change. So directly prelims में question पूछा जा सकता है that this report has been released by which of the following organizations, right? So the report is Global Climate 2011 to 20, a decade of acceleration concerning the alarming acceleration of climate change and its various impacts on the globe, on the human health as well as on environment, right? So let us see what are the key findings of or the key highlights of this particular report. So starting with, there has been a difference in temperature trends. So the decade 2011 से लेके 2020 तक, it was considered or it has emerged as the warmest on record for both land as well as sea. लैंड सर्फेसेस के लिए भी और फॉर वाटर बॉडीज और ओशन सर्फेसेस के लिए भी this decade it was the warmest which was ever recorded, right? And the global mean temperature, it had soared to 1.10 plus minus 0.12 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels, right? Above the 1850 to 1900 average, with each decade since 1919 surpassing the previous ones in the warmth, meaning by कि हर बीतते दशक के साथ में, दशक that is decade of 10 years, so every passing decade is warmer than the previous one, right? So this is the first highlight of this particular report. Thereafter we are also witnessing greenhouse gas emissions, right? And all of us are aware what are greenhouse gases, what is the characteristics. So greenhouse gases, they mainly trap the incoming shortwave solar radiation and they do not allow the long wave terrestrial radiation to escape, thereby increasing the temperatures, right? So the atmospheric concentration of the major greenhouse gases, it continued to rise, especially carbon dioxide, and it has reached 413.2 parts per million in year 2020. Primarily it is because of fossil fuel consumption. So burning of fossil fuels, definitely it is leading to rise or increase in the greenhouse gas emissions, right? So this data, actually you can use this data in your answer writing, in your mains. And it has also, this decade, it has also witnessed increase in average growth rates of carbon dioxide, highlighting the pressing need for sustainable emission reduction to stabilize the climate. Oftentimes we hear about zero target, right? And this can be a probable question in UPSC Prelims. India ka what is the, by which year India wants to have net zero emissions? Is it year 2047? Is it year 2035? या फिर none of these? So you have to be very clear and you should properly know these years, know the targets, right? Next, because of the rising temperature, because of increase in burning of fossil fuels, effects are not only seen on the land but also on the water in the form of ocean acidification, right? So ocean warming rates, they have also accelerated significantly with 90% of accumulated heat stored in the ocean. That means our oceans are becoming more and more warmer as the time progresses, right? And warming rates, they have doubled in the upper 2000 meters depth from year 2006 to 2020. Now what is this 2000 meters upper depth? So in geography, you must have read about the concept of thermocline. So let me just briefly explain. Suppose this is the depth. So there is photic zone up to around 200 meters, right? So what happens? Sunlight, it is able to penetrate or reach up to a depth of around 200 meters. But because of global warming, sea level have risen or sea level may increase हो रहा है. So because of that, what is happening? The photic zones are now turning into aphotic zones, right? Because sea level, it has increased. Sea level has increased, right? So definitely this is impacting the marine ecosystems. Also ocean acidification. That means the pH level of oceans, it is reducing, right? And what is ocean acidification? So simply what happens? Carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, right? It combines with water to form a weak acid by the name of carbonic acid, right? And because of ocean acidification, marine ecosystem or marine organisms, they are having a very hard time, especially those organisms which are having shells or skeleton, because their bodies are getting dissolved or dissolution is occurring more frequently because of ocean acidification, right? Affecting their shell and skeleton formation. So that is another key highlight of this particular report, which was released by World Meteorological Organization, having it headquartered at Geneva, Switzerland. Thereafter, there was also a mention of marine heat waves and sea level rise. First things first, we should clearly understand what do we mean by marine heat waves. So simply एक लाइन में इसको समझिए, marine heat waves is nothing but these are the periods of extremely high temperatures in the ocean, right? Above 90th percentile. Now what is this above 90th percentile means? So if you consider this y-axis, so we have temperature over here, on x-axis we have time period, right? So if the average temperature is shown like this is the average temperature, but marine heat waves, because of increase in temperatures, ocean ka bhi temperature is rising, right? So average temperature say, now the temperature is further rising, and any temperatures which are above the 90th percentile, they are termed as marine heat wave. So simple one line definition we all should remember, so that we do not waste crucial moments while writing the mains. For example, you should be very thorough with all the definitions, like what do you mean by climate change? What do you mean by agro-food systems? What do you mean by PDS? Definition. What do you mean by drought? What is desertification? Sabka definition should be thoroughly remembered, right? So marine heat waves, they have increased not only in frequency but also in intensity, right? And it has affected 60% of the entire ocean surface between year 2011 to 2020, and the trend is further continuing. And we had seen examples of Pacific blob, wherein number of sea creatures, especially the seabirds, murreys, they have been killed because of these marine heat waves. And also global mean sea level, it is also on a rise. It has accelerated to 4.5 mm per year from the year again 2011 to 2020. It is mainly because of ocean warming and ice mass loss, right? So these datas you must remember. Exam में तो हर कोई लिख के आएगा, because of global warming there is increase in sea level, but by what degrees, by what percentage, by what number, right? So this should be clearly remembered. So it is 4.5 mm per year, and this marine heat wave, it is impacting all the areas, all the oceans, and all of us are aware that because of rise in sea surface temperature, it is conducive for generation of tropical cyclones, because tropical cyclones are ultimately low pressure systems. और low pressure कहाँ पे develop होता है? In the areas of high temperature, right? So marine heat waves in Indian Ocean, and they definitely have an impact on our monsoon, and all of us are aware that monsoon is very crucial for the entire Indian economy, the entire Indian ecosystem when it comes to agriculture, all the allied sectors. Right? Plus, there was also a mention of high impact and extreme weather events. Right? So, extreme weather events, they had devastating impacts, particularly on food security. और 2023 में इसी साल a question was being asked, discuss the consequences of climate change on the food security in tropical countries. Right? So food security, definitely it is a cause of concern, and also human mobility, hindering the national development and progress towards SDGs or sustainable development goals, which have to be achieved. And heat waves, they were responsible for the highest number of casualties, right? So you have to remember this, heat waves, these are also a cause of concern. While the tropical cyclones, they cause the most economic damage. For example, you should remember this. In year 2020, tropical cyclone by the name of Amphan, it made a landfall in India and Bangladesh. And the estimated economic losses which were incurred by the countries, they were as high as around 14 billion US dollars. So you should remember some of the examples or case studies, right? So cyclone Amphan, it was highly disastrous, right? It has caused significant amount of economic losses. And also you can remember other tropical cyclones. When tropical cyclones, they come in this part of the world, that is North America, Atlantic region, so they are known as hurricanes, right? So similarly, Hurricane Irma, it has caused significant damage near the Caribbean islands, right? And this particular report which we are talking about, it is also mentioned about cryosphere. Now please comment down, what do you mean by cryosphere? In fact, UPSC mains GS paper 1, there was a question about cryosphere and its impact on climate change, right? So please comment down, what do you mean by cryosphere, right? So as the word suggests, cryo means extremely low temperatures, right? So glaciers, they are melting, right? And glaciers, you would be surprised to know, not only glaciers of Arctic region, not only glaciers of Antarctic region, but we have glaciers also in the tropics in the form of glaciers at Mount Kenya, glaciers in the form of Mount Benzori Mountains, which is at the western border of Uganda, right? So there also we are seeing that glaciers are melting, right? So Greenland and Antarctica, it has lost 38% more ice between year 2011 to 2020, right? Than during the previous decade, that is from year 2001 to year 2010. Right? And Arctic sea ice extent, it continues on a multi-decade decline, right? And we are seeing the mean seasonal minimum, it was 30% below the average. So you should remember these datas. They come in handy, right? So you should remember all of these datas. And glaciers globally have thinned by about 1 meter per year, right? Between year 2000, again 11 to 20, because the report itself, it is about the previous decade, 2011 से लेके 2020 तक. So it is about 1 meter per year. And definitely when glaciers are melting, or we are seeing acceleration in the loss of ice cover, what we are seeing or witnessing is unprecedented mass loss, thereby affecting water supplies. Because we are aware that glaciers and ice caps, for that matter, are very crucial source of fresh water, right? And also because of melting of glaciers, the salinity of ocean water, it is also impacted, right? So these data we have already seen about Greenland and Antarctica, right? And earlier this year there was a report from ICI MOD. Now what is ICI MOD? This is nothing but International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. Now this is a very alarming data. It is found that the disappearance of glaciers in the Hindu Kush Himalayas, it was 65% faster in 2010s than in the previous decades. So the rate of melting of glaciers, it has accelerated by a great number, right? So this we have to keep in mind. And also we are witnessing events of GLOF. What is GLOF? Glacial Lake Outburst Flow. And recently, if you are following current affairs, so a question can very well appear in your prelims also. That is, UPSC might ask a question that the term A23A recently seen in news is related to, and then it can give several options. Because environment ecology mein direct questions are being asked, like what do you mean by Miyawaki technique, or what do you mean by greenwashing, or what do you mean by biorock formation, right? So similarly, the term 823A, what is this term all about? So if you are, again I'm repeating the same thing, if you are thorough with the current affairs, you must be aware that this is one of the largest icebergs belonging to Antarctica, which has started moving, right? So it is very much in news, one of the world's largest icebergs, 823A, drifting beyond Antarctica waters, right? This was there. And also GLOF in South Lonak Lake in North Sikkim district, right? So we had seen the events of GLOF. And also there was a mention of ozone hole. But ozone hole and successes. So there is something to cheer about also, right? It is not, all is not dark and gloomy. Some of the initiatives taken by global initiatives like Vienna Convention or Montreal Protocol 1987 or the Kigali Amendment of 2016, they have started to showing positive results in the form of decrease in Antarctic hole, right? So the Antarctic hole diminished in year 2011 to 2020 period. So this you must remember, क्योंकि हमें generally क्या लगता है, everything is going bad. The UPSC might add a statement in the examination. The time period from 2011 to 2020 witnessed increase in the Antarctic hole. So that is a wrong statement, because in WMO recent report, there has been clear mention that Antarctic ozone hole, it has diminished from 2011 to year 2020, right? And it is credited to the successful international action under the Montreal Protocol, right? And efforts led to reduced chlorine entering the stratosphere from the ODS, ozone depleting substances. Now you should also be very particular about your basics. Examples of ozone depleting substances. In fact, 2023 के prelims में भी a question was being asked. There were 3 different chemicals and their uses was being asked. So chlorofluorocarbon, hydrochlorofluorocarbon, halons, methyl bromide, carbon, tetrachloride, methyl chloroform, etc. These constitute some of the important ozone depleting substances. And you would be surprised to know that one chlorine atom, it can destroy over 1 lakh ozone molecules before it is removed from the stratosphere, right? And when chlorine and bromine atoms, they come into the contact with ozone, they destroy the ozone molecules, right? So chlorine and bromine, they destroy the ozone layer, right? Then what are the impacts on sustainable development goals? So definitely sustainable development goals would be badly impacted if we do not arrest the changing climate, if we do not put a brake on the use of fossil fuels. It is also, having said that, it is also true that all of a sudden we cannot expect to completely decouple our economy from the use of fossil fuels, but very important that we can transition from fossil fuels to cleaner sources of energy. It would require some amount of political will. It would require some great amount of international collaboration. It would require great amount of financial incentives. Improvement in technology. Technological advancement are required, and also very important is acceptability by the customers also. Right. So extreme weather events, they have entered the progress towards sustainable development goals, and thereby impacting the food security, human mobility is being impacted, and also the socio-economic development, it has also taken a hit. Improved early warning systems, they have reduced the casualty. So this is a encouraging thing. This is a good thing that we are having improved early warning systems. For example, if a cyclone occurs, so we have satellites in place which are able to better monitor or track the paths of the cyclones, right? But the economic losses from extreme weather events, it has accelerated. So this is also a cause of concern. And this particular decade, that is 2011 से लेके 2020 तक, it was the first time since 1950 when there was not a single short-term event with 10,000 deaths or more, right? So this was the first decade since 1950. And at the end of the report, WMO, it has given number of recommendations that how do we tackle or how do we face this problem of climate change and related issues. So first things first, enhancing collective resilience against the current and future global crisis through collaboration. So collaboration and cooperation with international organizations along with their partners. So that is the first thing or the first recommendation. Second, strengthening of science policy society interaction. Now these are the points which are very generic in nature. कहाँ पे collaboration or cooperation नहीं चाहिए? It is applicable not only in climate change, it is also applicable for issues relating to whether health, whether internal security, whether sports, या फिर कोई भी issue है, water security etc. सभी में collaboration चाहिए, सभी में science policy society integration का requirement would be there. Promoting institutional capacity building, right? At different levels, be it national, institutional, individual levels, especially for the global south. So this term, it has gained currency in recent times, and ensuring policy coherence and coordination among policy makers among different sectors, because nothing works in silos. Akela chana bhad nahi phod sakta, right? So there has to be proper coordination among different sectors and departments, enhancing climate and development synergies at various levels. And finally, developing a framework for action that can help decision makers in public, private and social, civil society sectors so as to identify a just transition, right? And addressing the large investment gaps. जितनी भी बातें अभी तक हमने की हैं, very important is सिर्फ coordination और collaboration से काम नहीं चलेगा. Yes, they are very important, but equally important is addressing the large investment gaps, right? In the climate and development agendas to enhance the necessary synergies which are required, and prioritizing the role of synergies in work of United Nations, right? And prominent international financial institutions. And last but not the least, we have to treat our cities as opportunities focusing on climate development, synergies as sites of major population growth and expansion of economic activities. So we have to take care of each and everything. We cannot leave our environment behind. We cannot leave our economies behind. So there has to be a balance between both of these, right? So I hope you have gained something out of today's session. And again, I would repeat some of the points that we have already discussed that you must remember or you should take a note. सिर्फ कथा की तरह नहीं सुनना इस सेशन को, जो भी important points लगे which you think are important, which you can fit in 150 words or 250 words in the examination, you should write it down in your notes, right? So this is all for today. Thank you so much and have a great time.